Now let's start off each of those molecules roles and where are they found in the membrane. जैसे phospholipids हो गए, कोलेस्ट्रॉल है, ग्लाइकोलिपिड, ग्लाइकोप्रोटीन्स और ये सारे जो डिफरेंट प्रोटीन्स हैं इन सब के रोल्स क्या हैं? You have seen that cell membranes contain several different types of molecule, and there are total three types of lipids: phospholipids, cholesterol, and glycolipids. There are also proteins, glycoproteins, and each of these have a particular role in the overall structure of functions of the membrane. Number one, we have phospholipids. As explained, they are the ones which form a bilayer, which is the basic structure of the membrane. And the fluidity of the membrane is also affected by the length of these fatty acid chains and how saturated or unsaturated they are. First of all, it depends on the length. And second of all, longer the length, lesser the fluidity. More the saturated, lesser the fluidity. But more the unsaturated the bonds are, more would be the fluidity. Because the tails of the phospholipids are non-polar, it is difficult for the polar molecules or ions to pass through membranes. Membranes, therefore, act as a barrier to most water-soluble substances. This means that water-soluble molecules such as sugar, amino acids, and protein cannot leak out of the cell, and unwanted water-soluble molecules cannot enter the cell. Why can't water-soluble molecule enter the cell? Because there's a whole layer of this hydrophobic structure. This is hydrophobic. This region is hydrophobic. A molecule can pass the head, but it cannot pass the tails over here. Cholesterol molecules. Some phospholipids also, by the way, act as cell signaling molecules as well. That is our tomorrow's lecture. Cholesterol, on the other hand, is a relatively smaller molecule like phospholipids, and cholesterol molecules have hydrophilic heads and hydrophobic tails. They fit between the phospholipid molecule. Look at this. Cholesterol molecule, they are just fitted between they found a gap and they fit themselves between phospholipids. Cell surface membranes in the animal cells contain almost as much cholesterol as the phospholipid, and the cholesterol is much less common in plant cell membranes and it is absent from prokaryotes. In these organisms, compounds very similar to cholesterol serve the same function, and cholesterol is important for mechanical stability of membranes. It strengthens the membranes by getting in between the phospholipid molecules and reducing the fluidity. Without cholesterol, membranes quickly break down. So, cholesterol का काम क्या है? Fluidity. And without cholesterol, membranes would break down and the cells would burst open when there is no membrane to control what enters or exits the cell. The hydrophobic regions of the cholesterol molecules help to prevent ions or polar molecules from passing through the membrane. The same function that the hydrophobic region of the phospholipids is performing. So they also don't let the polar molecules go in the soluble hydrophilic molecules. This is also particularly important in the myelin sheath that we'll study in your chapter number 14, A2 के अंदर, that how this is very important in your myelin sheath. At low temperatures, the phospholipid tails tend to pack closer together, but the cholesterol prevents this from happening too much. We know that when we increase temperature, fluidity increases. But when you decrease temperature, fluidity decreases. But the cholesterol molecules are there to negate this effect. Got it?
Yeah.
Next, we have glycolipids, glycoproteins, and proteins. Probably all the protein molecules and many of the lipid molecules on the outer surfaces of the cell surface membrane have short hydrocarbon chains attached to them. These combination molecules are known as glycoproteins and glycolipids, and some of the functions of the glycolipids and proteins, including glycoproteins, are summarized below. Number one, they are receptor molecules. They bind with particular substrate या कोई signal आ रहा हो, कोई hormone आ रहा हो, कोई neurotransmitter आ रहा हो, depending on its function, it acts as a receptor जहाँ पे any particular substrate or substance is going to come and bind. Cholesterol is a small lipid-related molecule with a hydrophilic head and a hydrophobic tail, which is an essential constituent of the membranes, and it is particularly found commonly in animal cells, gives flexibility and stability to the membrane as well as reduces the fluidity. One group of receptors is known as the signaling receptors. They are part of the signaling system. That is our tomorrow's lecture. Tomorrow we'll be talking about cell signaling, which is a very, very important chapter. They recognize messenger molecules, hormones हो गए, neurotransmitter हो गए. We'll do this in your second year A2 syllabus as well. And then they start doing these chemical reactions. Once they receive the signal, they generate some chemical reactions. And then finally they can produce a response, जैसे glucagon, insulin, glucose, blood glucose levels का homeostatic responses होते हैं, they are all done by cell signaling. Moreover, they also perform cell-to-cell recognition functions. Some glycolipids and glycoproteins act as cell markers or antigens, allowing the cells to recognize each other. The carbohydrate chains bind to complementary sites on other cells, and this cell-to-cell recognition is important in growth and development and for the immune responses. Each type of cell has its own type of antigen, rather like countries with different flags. For example, ABO would have its own receptors, blood group B would have its own receptors, blood group O होगा उसके अपने antigens होंगे which would be recognized by the cell. So it's very specific to each one of these. Then we have some act as transport proteins. अब transport proteins के अंदर we also have to study in detail in after 2 days जो lecture आएगा. We have channel proteins, we have carrier proteins, ठीक है, जो कि transport के functions provide करती है. Because we just studied that through this hydrophobic layer, water soluble substances cannot pass through because they can pass the head, but they cannot pass the whole tail region. So that is why we have certain transport proteins in order to let those water soluble substances in. We provide those ions a passageway to pass through the membrane and enter the cell. Each transport protein is specific for a particular kind of ion or molecule, and there are a total of 2 types of transport protein, channel and carrier. Some substrate proteins are also enzymes. For example, digestive enzymes are found in cell surface membrane. क्योंकि proteins, enzymes are also proteins. You forgot, मतलब enzymes भी तो proteins हैं. So I also forgot this function that obviously enzymes are also made of proteins. So the proteins present in membranes can also act as enzyme, and they catalyze the hydrolysis, the breakdown of large disaccharides. जैसे कि maltose is broken down into glucose. Sucrose would be broken down into fructose and glucose and all of that. Some proteins also act as cytoskeleton inside of the cell membrane, and they maintain and decide the shape of the whole cell, that how do we have to hold the cell. Other roles would also include, for example, some membranes in mitochondria. We'll study in your A2 chapter 12, and some membranes in chloroplast. We'll study that in A2 chapter 13 and A2 chapter 12, that how these membranes present in organelles are performing their functions in respiration and photosynthesis.